Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael Collazo and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Collazo, here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
Well, and wonderful out there. Just enjoying life and enjoying the warm weather. I know we're coming now at the end of summer, so but yeah, everything's going good. What about you, Raphael? How's it going over there?
Definitely, yeah, no, and like you said, it's near the tailing end of summer, which is not great. I love summer. I love heat, so the fact we're going to start going shorter days and colder nights is going to be a sad thing for me. But you know what? Christmas is always nice, so I'm looking forward to that. But overall, it's been good on my end. Nothing too eventful. I'm just, again, getting married here in November, so finalizing all that stuff and just keeping up with business on my end on the brokerage side. But overall, it's been great. And really, speaking of just a great conversation and just an awesome human being, we really had an honor to be able to interview Robert Powell, who's the CEO and principal of RESOLUT RE in New Mexico. And we had a wealth of conversation, and he shared a wealth of knowledge pertaining to a variety of different insights, in particular related to mindset, coaching, and leadership. So some of the things we talked about is, his early career. He started off in the consulting the space out of college and healthcare consulting. Interestingly enough, he had an opportunity to work at Humana. So he was here in our local market, Louisville, periodically throughout the years. And he mentioned a hotel that he really likes to stay at in our local market. But he also talked about the transition from what he was doing on the consulting side over into the investment space, and then finally breaking into the brokerage side of things. And that's kind of where he's operated in since 2007, 2008 timeframe. And so he shared some of the insights he gained on that front. Along with that, he shared some of the struggles he faced early on with that transition. He didn't, like you said, he didn't start off in the real estate space. He did kind of fall into it after, experiencing what he did near the dot-com burst, and where he transitioned from what he was doing before into real estate. And then he also talked about, how he's able to shift his mindset so that he can become a more effective broker on that front as well. And we really touched on, a lot of points related to coaching, the importance of coaching. He himself is a coach, and he has clients that he's worked with across the nation. He himself has been coached. So we talked about the value of both giving coaching and also receiving coaching, as well as leadership and how to become an effective leader and build a healthy culture and organization where you get to retain and grow people so they want to stay and help the organization succeed. And then finally, we touched on some of the shifts in the market over the last several months and just the last couple of years, pertaining first to retail, how it's evolved over time. And then finally, we touched on, the 1031 exchange activity that we've been seeing compared to last year versus this year. And he kind of shared some insights pertaining to how things have been shifting on that front. So I thought it was a phenomenally engaging podcast. As I said before, Rob's just an awesome guy, and we're looking forward to keeping in touch with him. But Jeff, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Rob was, like you said, he was an amazing guy, and you could just see that the passion that he has for coaching, and then what impact the people that he's coaching actually has on himself. You guys will find out about that in the episode. And I also, like I've said in the past episodes, that I have an ask for everyone that's listening, and it is to reach out to another person that you could think might find value in this podcast. It could be a friend or associate or coworker, any of that. We would love for you to recommend us. And we're grateful for all the ones that have recommended us and help our channel grow. So I just wanted to say thank you for all that, and keep them coming. The recommendations, are amazing. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we like we always say, we are humbled by the support we've received from you guys since we started this podcast last year. So keep the support coming, keep sharing it with all the people that you think would find value from it. And then also, if you haven't had a chance to, we would greatly appreciate if you could leave a 5-star review. Go to Apple Podcast or Spotify and just drop a 5-star review. It really does help with, engaging people who are considering listening to the podcast, that they see that we are providing value through the 5-star reviews that we have. It does really make a difference in whether or not they decide to listen and ultimately, help the podcast reach a broader audience. So again, we would greatly appreciate if you could do that. So thanks again so much for your guys' support. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the podcast. Well, hey, Rob, great afternoon. Good afternoon to you.
Man, I'm honored to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on and taking the time to do this. So
absolutely,
to get started.
Absolutely. And we kind of talked offline a little bit about some of the people that we've run into through the years. And obviously, you had a chance to, Bo very well. Bo was actually my CCIM 102 instructor this past year, and we've kept in touch, and he's just an impressive individual. And, obviously we connected with you through LinkedIn and all the efforts that you've been putting on the platform. And you seem like a phenomenal thought leader in the space. And we're just really excited to learn a little bit more about your backstory. So, what we typically do when we first interview someone on the podcast, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about them. So if you don't mind sharing your backstory, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's a long backstory, and I'll try to be quick about it. So I came out of grad school and got into consulting. It was the exciting job to get. I traveled all over the place, and it was healthcare consulting of all things. So I consulted with Humana, Kaiser, and so forth. Lived all over the United States, but it's a tough gig. And in that, I got into the .com consulting, and that blew up. And when that blew up, I was out of a job. And there's so much behind that, but I'll go on if you want to talk about that later. But the point there was, when I was out of a job, I got a gig with Ernst & Young in Boston. And I did accept the job, but I thought about the lifestyle I had, and it was a heavy weight to carry, and I could not think about continuing to do that. So I started trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur of some kind. So I went to Barnes & Noble, picked up tons of books, was going to buy a Subway. I went down a lot of rabbit holes, and I picked up a book on how to buy homes with no money, right? It was called Multiple Streams of Income by Peter Conti and David Finkel. Picked up a book. I thought I could do it. I read the book. I couldn't do it. So I went to the boot camp. I'm that guy. I went to the boot camp, paid about $5,000, went up to Colorado, and there it started. I came back and I picked up close to about 60 homes with all kinds of different tactics. I was so good at it, at least David Finkel and Peter Conti thought I was good at it, that they asked me to be a coach. So I started traveling around the country, coaching and speaking on how to buy homes. I later did the Monopoly game. I traded those homes in and bought a shopping center, bought a mobile home park, really heavy into commercial real estate. Well, 2006, 2007 comes along, and wow, totally rocked my world. Coaching slowed down really fast. No more seminars and so forth. And so the broker I was using to find properties says, hey, if you really want to be the first guy to see properties, you should probably become a broker. And at that time, I'd already taken my CCIM courses and stuff. I didn't take the test, but I had taken all the classes. So I became a broker, and probably the worst broker in the world. I had a lot of investments, right? And I had passive income. So there was not a whole lot of motivation to be a great broker. And obviously, I was at a big firm, had a lot of great brokers. I'm pretty sure I was the worst. But I started getting the brokering bug. I started to enjoy it, and I started to meet a lot of people, movers and shakers in New Mexico. and I quickly wanted to be a better broker. So that's how I met Rod. Rod came and gave a class at the brokerage I was at. He and I met, and fast forward a little bit, I got with a firm that was doing a lot of development. And then I started coaching. Bo Barron recruited me, Rod recruited me. And that was a life changer for me, is becoming a coach. I kind of lean into that Stephen Covey principle of, if you want to be great at something, you coach it. And I started to coach, and I really started to see my brokerage change, the way I saw things. It was a life changer in every possible way, not only as a broker, but as an investor, and also started to help me in leadership, because I had the opportunity to coach all these phenomenal brokers across the country. And when you coach someone, you start to get personal in ways that you don't think about. And yeah, sure, there's a curriculum and so forth, but there's a lot going on in someone's business. So I started learning about the markets. I started learning about how different brokerages work, and that helped me do what I'm doing today. And so that was a quick synopsis.
That's awesome. Yeah. And similar to you, actually, I came from a consulting background as well. I actually was in software consulting. So I was an engineer in college, and then got into the software space. And I was a developer and consultant for a company that implemented software systems around the country and abroad. And so I don't know what type of, cadence as far as travel was concerned for you, but for us, they would move us there, and we'd have to be on site. I know typically with the consulting lifestyle, it's like you fly out early Monday morning, and you're lucky if you get back, Friday evening, sometimes even Saturday or whatever. So it's a very rigorous and can be a very, brutal lifestyle to have it. I mean, you learn a lot in a compressed time frame, but it is after a while I could see it wearing down. So
I learned a lot. I was more on the process reengineering, and I was also on the organizational consulting. But yeah, I mean, I would fly out Sunday night, fly back Thursday night, fight with my wife all weekend long, and then fly out again. It was rough, but coming out of school, you get to eat at fancy restaurants and stay at the best hotels.
Absolutely.
Well, that gets old really fast. And when all you're thinking about is how many points for frequent flyer miles and hotel points you can rack up. That's a tough life.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, and that's kind of what, I kind of came to the realization of as well. I mean, I wasn't doing that cadence, but they were moving us every other year, and it's just hard to cement yourself. And as someone who's entrepreneurial, it's hard to build something outside of that, with that type of lifestyle and that type of cadence. And obviously what you had mentioned pertaining to your experiences on the investing side. I mean, that's an impressive feat to be able to accomplish that. And that's a relatively short period, right? Because you said that when the .com bubble burst, that was in 2001. So you're saying between 2001 and 2007 timeframe, you'd already built up 60 homes and you transitioned into commercial. Is that correct?
Yes. It was quick, but I was desperate. Mm-hmm. I cashed in my 401k. I was desperate, and I worked it, and it does work, but you really have to have a motivator, and putting food on the table. That's a motivator.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. So I'm kind of curious of what, there's a lot of different sectors within commercial real estate. What's one that you enjoyed diving into, that you kind of love doing? Can you?
So first of all, it's a people business, and and I'm a generalist. In the tertiary market, secondary market, like New Mexico, Albuquerque, I do it all. And right now I'm excited about industrial. Who isn't, right? And but retail is something that I do a lot of. Investment sales is what I love doing. I love selling the big shopping centers, single tenant net leased type assets. But it's the people. If there's people that I love working with and they're into something, I'm into it. And that's how I just love working with great people, and I hate working with difficult people. Right.
Don't we all? That's
Yeah.
true. No, but
Yeah.
you also, and it's an important context as well, because, getting to know the individual and building that relationship with them, because each person has their own goals. Each person has their own aspirations. And so really getting a feel for the individual themselves can help you better serve them. I mean, and that's ultimately what a sales is to try to, help someone achieve their aspirations in whatever particular niche or profession that you're in. So.
Not only that, but you're very well aligned, right? When someone is, since I own property, it is really, really easy to have that conversation and come from the perspective of ownership and understanding the bottom line. That is really my value proposition when I'm talking to other investors, is that I understand the pain. I understand what it's like to have a 26,000 square foot vacant box and the pain that goes along with it. And that is my connection with most of my clients.
That's amazing.
And the important part is I'm an advisor saying, hey, Rob, this is what's going on. What have you experienced with your portfolio? And it's a dialogue. And I think that's critical for most brokers. And this is something that Rod talks a lot about. Rod Santomassimo is transitioning from a commodity to an advisor. And when you're a commodity, it's, people, if landlords, tenants see you as a commodity, it's easy for them to switch. Yeah. When they see you as an advisor, it's a lifelong relationship. And oh my goodness, what a game changer it is when you're an advisor and you share the pain. You totally understand where they're coming from, and you can help them. Now you have a seat at the table. You're in that boardroom and you represent the real estate. Unquestionably a huge move.
Absolutely. And that owner's perspective, like you said, is, I'm sure, game changing. I mean, I have a small multifamily property here in Louisville, and, just with, the investors that I deal with on the multifamily end, when I've sold several multifamily properties, it's like, this is what I've done in my experience that's been successful. This didn't work out. Definitely don't want to do this. And so it does create that a little bit level of trust. You become, like you said, that advisor. So I'm sure sure that's game changing on your end, really.
And I think that should be every broker's goal is to be at that advisor level. And speaking of Louisville, just a quick rabbit hole here is that my favorite hotel in the world, well, not in the world, but Seelbach, Louisville.
Nice.
Awesome hotel. I lived there forever.
Yeah.
I liked it.
With Humana, right? So
right.
Yeah.
Humana's the big 800-pound gorilla here. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Seelbach Hotel, the best. At least it used to be. I don't know what it's like now. But
so yeah, of course. And so one of the things I was kind of curious about is, you mentioned that transition, and there's a lot of people who listen to this call, and I'm like this, and I know a lot of people are like this. This wasn't their first career. They transitioned from something else and then ultimately found themselves in this profession. So if you could kind of provide some context as to, how that transition was, and then maybe some of the early struggles you faced.
Oh, freaking painful. And it was a transition because I wasn't desperate, but I needed to find deals to feed the machine. At that time, I had built a small property management company, wanted to feed deals there. I was looking for properties. And so you can imagine, I was at Grubb & Ellis at the time, and it later on switched to Colliers. I wasn't productive as a broker and didn't feel the need, other than the peer pressure of other brokers doing very successful. And here I was taking up office space, but really focused on my own stuff. In that transition, my identity was kind of lost. 2008, 2009, investments were really slow, hard to buy stuff. And here I was trying to be a broker and be an investor at the same time. So to answer your question, transition was tough. But then I figured out what were the components, how to do it. I always used to hear a broker, if a brand new broker, he'd get thrown a phone book, years and years and years ago, just start calling. I was not a prospector. I learned how to prospect. I had to learn these things, and there was no one to coach me. There wasn't someone that I was working under that was helping me. And so I had to learn these things. What is prospecting? What is presence? What is cadence? How do you use a CRM? And the sooner in transition, the sooner you can grab a hold of those things, the quicker you are going to be successful. We have an intern in our office, came from the car industry. And he is starting from scratch. And I know how important it is to get coached. And so I'm spending a lot of time explaining how to do presence, how to prospect. And that transition is quickly happening in a matter of months. For me, it was a matter of years.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. And that just goes to show the importance of being in a place where, the coaching can take place, someone who's willing to pour into you to try to help you. But it also is a two-way street because, I've been in coaching for many years, and, I've coached myself as well. And, you could be eager as a person to want to engage and pour into someone, but unless they have that same level of commitment, there's just nothing that can be done. And so, like you said, it's a two-way street, but obviously kind of goes to show the importance of surrounding yourself with those types of individuals.
And not only that, and it's something I touch on a lot regarding culture, and specifically is when you are with leadership that has an abundance mindset, that leader is going to want everyone around him better versus a mindset of scarcity where that leader or that head broker is scared of creating their competition. How much do you hear that? I think as a leader, coming out of abundance and creating an atmosphere where I am committed to make everyone around me better, everyone in the company better. That means I got to give everything I have, because if you're successful, the company's going to be successful. I'm going to be successful. So I have to make that commitment to everyone that works with me, that you're getting all of me. And that's all the coaching, all the counseling, mentoring, whatever it is, you've got it. That changes everything. And so when someone comes into our company and someone can commit that, hey, not only am I committing for you to be successful, I'm gonna do everything I can so that you're a better broker than I am. I don't want to be the number one producer. I want you to be the number one producer. Well, guess what happens with that is you have lower turnover rate. I have a guiding principle here is that I want you to be recruited. I want you to be so damn good that every company wants you. And go out to lunch with them, go to dinner, tell me about it, because my job is to create a culture where you want to stay. If you make a lateral move, that's my bad. That's my mistake. Yeah. That's on me. If you make a vertical move and something that's awesome, I'm going to be the first one to cheer you on. But imagine walking into a culture like that where the commitment is for your success. That's who people follow. Anyways, I think I went off a rabbit hole there, but I get pretty excited about that kind of stuff.
I mean, no, that a good leader is a coach, and a coach is a leader if you're doing it right. So, I mean, that kind of goes into what you were saying there. So to form a culture and create that work environment that somebody enjoys. And speaking of coaching, how has that actually played in your career development through the years? How important has that been for you?
Monumental. The best thing that ever happened to me was understanding the role coaching plays in self-improvement. I coach at the investment level, how to buy homes, how to buy mobile home parks, and so forth. And that really changed my perspective, because the more I did that, the better I got. And I still coach today. I have several people that I coach across the country, from East Coast to West Coast, and getting into their business and seeing different perspectives is a game changer for me. And I think that's helped me in so many ways, not only as a principal for the office, but as the role of CEO of the company. And trying to establish that culture, establish those guiding principles. But it doesn't come from me. It comes from all the stuff I've learned from all the brokers I coach. I get a lot more out of the people that I coach than they get out of me. And that's just the way it is. And I love it. And I love the people I coach. And guess what? I give them all I can, everything I have, because I want them to be successful.
How did you, one thing that I'm kind of curious about more so for myself as well, because, you know, like I've been coached for many, many years, and I've even, you know, had coaching clients in the past, you know, and they weren't paid clients, but they were people that, you know, had reached out to me asking for advice and wanting to meet on a regular basis to try to work through things and try to achieve their goals. And, you know, one of the struggles that I faced when I was doing that was that, you know, it was almost the self-doubt type of thought process. It's like, who am I to be able to pour into these individuals? And, you know, obviously that was unwarranted because I had done other things that through my experiences, I'm further along in this direction than maybe they were. So I could provide that context, but there's always that doubt inside your head. So I was kind of curious about, did you face that early on, or and how did you overcome that particular, you know, logic or thought?
I still face it. I deal with doubt every day. But as I've continued to coach, and I think that's the key, is being consistent in what you do and getting a perspective from all the different individuals that you coach. You understand what works and doesn't. There's curriculum. There's things that, you know, hey, this is how you prospect. This is how you use your CRM. This is how you use cadence. But what really is, it's much deeper, because everyone's situation is very different. And all of a sudden you start to fill your tool belt with different tools. And I never have, I'm never in a position where I have nothing to say, because I pull from different experiences. And the more people I coach, the more tools I have. But it's basically being exposed to different scenarios. Really, I can't think of anything that's going on in the brokerage world and commercial real estate that I haven't faced before. And it's not because of my own experience, but the experiences of all the people that I coach.
That's amazing. No, that's some great insight. And like any learned skill, because coaching is a skill, leadership and developing as a leader is a skill. I mean, it just takes practice and putting yourself out there. So I'm thankful that you were able to share that insight, because, you know, I this is something that I've struggled with in my past, and I'm sure some of our listeners have as well. So it's always great to hear context from someone who has a lot of experience and has been successful in the space. So, you know, one thing I wanted to ask you was related to, you know, the current workforce landscape we find ourselves in. One of the things that I do a lot in the retail side, and, you know, a lot of my clients are complaining about, you know, recruitment and retention of employees pertaining to their particular industries. And I'm kind of curious, on your side, as the leader of your organization, what are some of the challenges you face regarding recruitment and retention of you know, your either brokers and other people within your organization?
Everyone is facing it, and I think it comes down to culture, and it comes down to building a really healthy culture. Guiding principles are something that I lean into a lot. Like I just kind of shared with you that I want my brokers, I want my team to get recruited. I want them to be so damn good that other people notice them, and it's my job to create a culture that they don't want to leave, right? And so everyone is facing it. And it's so important. Culture is so important right now. And I talked about the mindset of scarcity and the mindset of abundance. You're going to see in a culture where there's scarcity, you're going to see people leaving. You're going to have turnover problems. You're going to have HR situations. You're going to have a hard time holding on to a team. So what is it a leader that can do to create a culture where they want to stay and they want to grow? Well, the responsibility is on the leadership to give them the opportunity to grow, to pour into them. Right now, everything is starting to shrink. Business is starting to slow down. What is the one key that I need to do? I need to give them the tools and the resources. And I call this the gap, where I spend a lot of time as leader in this gap, giving them tools and resources for their success. So right now, I do a lot of coaching specifically on getting on building market share. Things are slowing down. Brokers are starting to take a break. And they're using the pandemic or whatever as an excuse. right now we got to prospect. You gotta take the time and everyday prospect. A lot of brokers use pipeline work as an excuse not to prospect. Right now, as things slowing down, no more than anything else, the fundamentals, the blocking and tackling of prospecting, presence, working on your pipeline, and building market share. Because as landlords are going to start changing brokers, tenants are going to look for different brokers because things start to slow down, and the brokers, their activity drops. And then they use the market as an excuse. Bullshit. This is the time right now to step into it and to gain market share. And it has to happen at the leadership level. The individuals by themselves, without that type of support, without that encouragement, without that type of coaching, they will take the foot off the gas. And, I love that term, success breeds failure. If they get a big closing, hey, great, celebrate today, but let's get back on it because a storm is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. We literally, so Jeff and I are in a mastermind group together, and we were just there yesterday talking. We have like the hot seats and everything else, and we address like our big business problems and everything else. And that was literally a topic of discussion yesterday. It's like the economy's slowing down. It's time to try to capture market share. And our people in our group obviously are from different industries too. We're not just strictly real estate focused. So it's a good perspective to have, and having a group of people that you can meet with on a regular basis to hold each other accountable has been instrumental, really.
It's interesting that you mentioned masterminds. I used to belong to this group called Maui Mastermind, and we would go off to Hawaii for a couple of weeks, a week or so. And that was a huge game changer in my life, and is meeting all these incredibly, really great investors, business people, and getting that type of feedback. Again, it is getting a perspective from different individuals and feeding into your life as you feed into theirs. Crazy important. It's awesome that you're doing it. And I think everyone should be in a mastermind.
Yeah, no, it was very organic. And obviously we're all friends of each other, and we were in a similar networking group and everything else. And we just thought it would be a great idea for us to get together. And the cool thing is that we're not all, we have definitely more of a lean towards real estate. We have people in construction and real estate, like brokers and such, but we also have people who are like car sales. He owns a car lot. We have a gentleman who owns a window company. So there's a variety of different businesses that can provide completely different perspectives than someone who, like myself, who's in brokerage. Jeff tells me, provides insights all the time pertaining to the construction side of things, which I'm still learning about myself. So it's been great. And I'm sure Jeff can comment on that too.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's nice to get all those perspectives for sure, especially in different industries, and to see where you're at and kind of dictate the direction that we must go in. But I think, like you said earlier, Raphael, is the all commonality, and you said it too, Rob, is like, now's the time to buckle down and to gain that market share. It's not time to sit back and relax. It's coming. So you might as well start now, not later, and wait.
Yeah. Can I just say something real?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
On that. It's interesting that a lot of brokers, even average brokers in the past couple of years, have been incredibly successful, even with the pandemic and so forth, incredibly successful. And the problem is they're patting themselves on the back. And I'm old enough to remember 1998, and I'm old enough to remember 2007. And the thing is, this feels a lot like that. And the problem is brokers are patting themselves on the back, and they think nothing's going to change. This is where coaching, this is where the experienced older brokers can come in and really at least enlighten that this is how it's going to work. This is what you do to live through this storm. If you remember, you guys look very young, but 2007 brokers left. They've went and looked for different careers, and it got really small, and that's awesome, because that leaves the best brokers there to pick up what's left over. This is where coaching is in leadership and culture comes into play, because the last few years is not real.
No. Yeah, you're right. I totally agree. I went through that. I had a construction company during the 2005, starting in 2002, and then I went through the 2007, 2008. We'll say recession, I guess. Some people call it the Great Recession, but anyways, yeah. So I understand, and it's eerie how it does feel the same way, like you said, Rob. And I tell people like, hey, take it from me. I had a thriving construction business back then, and it dramatically reduced my work and income stream for sure to make it through that. So yeah, it's one of those things. I try to tell them like, hey, I'm not the guy running around like we're going to burn to the ground, but hey, something is coming, and it feels just like the same way. Yeah, but
what's interesting is, what if we're wrong? What if
yeah,
things continue going on? So be it. You're better off for it, being prepared and doing the things you need to do every day. And if it doesn't come, guess what? You're going to be even more ahead.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It doesn't hurt to be prepared and be more ahead if it doesn't happen. And I would love to be wrong. I absolutely would love to be wrong.
Yeah. No, me too. That's what I say. But also, in a secret way, though, it's like the ones who started companies several years ago, and it's like now you're really going to be put to the test, and that's kind of what I've been waiting for to see, who can come out on top of this and who's going to put in the actual work to make it through. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the questions I actually wanted to ask you is like the evolution of retail business in general throughout the years. How has that actually evolved at the beginning? Because I know you said you owned a shopping center once before, and I don't know when that exactly was as far as a year, but I'm sure it's changed dramatically from when you purchased that to, what we see now out there in the environment.
That's a broad question. And
it is.
I'll just kind of give you the example of what I'm seeing in New Mexico. And I think based on everyone that I talked to, it seems to be similar, is that right now, I know you're asking about retail, but industrial is there's just not enough of it, right? So guess what's happening to retail, especially the older centers? Those big boxes are now being used in an industrial type setting, right? So, for example, I represent an army, military contractor, defense contractor, and they took a 40,000 square foot Babies R Us space. Right now, they completely changed the facade. I mean, the landscape of that retail area. You've got Cons home furnishings on one end, and now you've got a defense contractor on the other side, right? So what we're seeing is that their retail, even though there's some increase in vacancy, those spots that can be reused as something else, that's happening a lot. So we don't have as much retail as we used to, because it's getting used for different purposes. And I still have the shopping centers and so forth, and I'm seeing that they're just getting repurposed in a different way, whether it's storage, flex industrial, what have you. There's definitely an evolution going on, but it's more about repurposing than it is anything else.
Absolutely.
Actually, really curious. I know shopping center, a mall is actually considered, a shopping center. However, I'm actually curious of like the malls in the New Mexico has like JCPenney's and all those big retail chains. Have they been moving out there? And then if so, what's been going into those spaces? Is it what you're saying is they're turning them into just warehouse space? Or
for malls, it's a little different. But now you're seeing gyms, right? They're taking the old big box spaces, and now you see gyms, you see churches. We have a huge Cottonwood Mall out here that's really struggling, and you're seeing where they're actually condoing off the big boxes to different uses, and it's medical, it's gyms, it's office, right? Definitely repurposing, going into malls, churches, and so forth. Just survival at this point with the large malls. The malls that seem to be surviving really well are the ones that have flipped and started putting retail on the outside, right? So now you don't have to go in the mall to shop. You can just drive up and walk into the store, the restaurant, or so forth. So you're seeing a lot of that, the outside in flip or the inside out flip going on, and creating the retail and entrances from the parking area very easy versus having to go in.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and we're, we haven't seen as much on that front in the Louisville area as far as the repurposing like of these large big box tenants as of yet, but I'm sure that's coming down the pike. We've interviewed several people across the country, and it seems like that is something that is starting to trend in that direction, especially if because a lot of these retail centers are pretty well located along high traffic roadways and, easy access points. So if you can repurpose them into like a logistics center, or something along those lines, it could be a pretty good use for that particular property. Now, one thing I was kind of curious about was you mentioned earlier, you're really interested and you like to work with investors for these different types of triple net opportunities or, single tenant net lease properties. How have you seen the activity as of late? That's one thing that just this last year, I was working a lot with people who were wanting to exchange into some other properties and the inventory was just extremely low. Have you seen a shift as far as, there's still people in the market for that are looking to exchange, but now the inventory is starting to come available more readily? How have you seen that evolve?
I am seeing that there's definitely a little shift going on. And especially right now, cash is king. If they don't have to deal with the bank and they're coming in, we're seeing a lot of that. We're still seeing a struggle with supply. There's not a lot out there. And, it's depends on where the person's coming from. A four cap seems really reasonable for a California buyer, right? It's not reasonable for a local buyer. And so I'm seeing things slow down, but there's still demand and there's still no supply of quality product, at least in my market right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say that's similar in our market too. I mean, and good product, like if it's a solid property, there's going to be demand for it. I mean, like you said, there's still a lot of cash out there. It's just, making sure that the property is a good fit. So
yeah, and the thing with the cash buyers is cap rate they're not so cap rate sensitive because it's a return, right? Versus having to get a loan and then buying something and then that cap rate, there's got to be a spread somewhere, and it's almost impossible right now. And so you're seeing a huge slowdown with that. And but nationwide, from multifamily and on, the demand is still very high. Absolutely. But the cash players are definitely just looking for a return.
Rob, as we start rounding out the process here and the rest of the questions, I want to say I appreciate your time and your experience. And I know you have a lot more to give out there and to coach. I can see how much passion that is for you. And I wish you luck on that as well. But one of the question is, I know earlier you spoke about one book, but we always ask this question because Raphael and I both are avid readers, and we like to ask, what is one of the most impactful books that you've read? And it doesn't have to pertain to commercial real estate or coaching or anything. It just whatever your most impactful book was for you.
Well, there's so many books, but I always in my coaching, I always reference The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Another book that I always go to is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. These are common, right? And I'll throw another one out there. Never Eat Alone. I can't remember the author's name, dadgummit. But that is
Simon Sinek. I think it's Simon Sinek. Is that correct?
No, it's not him.
It's not him?
No.
Okay.
But that's a great book. But there's things that I always refer back and things that are always in my mind. But I'll give you something that's completely off topic here, and that is I'm reading about the history of the American West, and it's Blood and Thunder by Hampton Sides, the story of Kit Carson. Amazing book if you're into history. Crazy good. So there you go.
Kit Carson, who's that? Is he the author or is he the gentleman?
No, the author is Hampton Sides. It is about one of the early. Gosh, he's just a hero. He's kind of like the Daniel Boone of the time. He helped in the exploration and so forth. He's actually a superhero in all aspects. Kit Carson, crazy cool superhero.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll have to add that one. And for the Never Eat Alone, I just looked it up. It was Keith Ferrazzi.
Ferrazzi.
Right.
Keith Ferrazzi, Never Eat Alone.
Okay, yeah,
Nice.
I have to add one to the list. There's a few that in there I haven't read. I've read the first two, but I have not read the last two, and
I make my kids read these books. I give them to new brokers. It's so important because it focuses on the people aspect, and if you can't connect at that level, it doesn't matter. Go get a job, right? Because real estate is about people.
Couldn't agree more. No, those are some great insights, and we'll include those links to the books in the show notes as well, so those of you guys who are listening can actually tune in to check it out. But again, Rob, we greatly appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, but we were really glad we were able to get together and learn a little bit more about your backstory and the insights you shared, especially pertaining to coaching and leadership. I think that's something that, this is kind of the reason why we get the honor to interview people like you that have the experience that have showcased their leadership in the industry. Because, again, all it takes is one idea. If someone's listening to this and they garner one piece of information or one piece of insight that they can garner, and then they apply that to their life and it changes it for the better, that's the hope for, these types of podcast episodes. But one thing we typically ask our guests at the end of the podcast is we like to be able to have them contribute something to what we call the commercial real estate treasure chest. It's a repository of resources that we make available to our audience. And usually people contribute something, we've had people contribute helpful PDFs, we've had Excel sheets, we've had, ebooks, really anything that you think would be of value to the audience. So if you don't mind, I just want to ask you, what are you willing to contribute today?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be on your show. I think the world of you guys, and thank you for what you do. And I'm just honored to be here. So thank you. What I'm going to contribute, first thing is a video. It's called the Team Blueprint. And it's basically my culminating all the things that I've learned over the years. And obviously not all of it's in the video, but I focus on the fundamentals, guiding principles and culture. So hopefully you find a lot of value out of that. And then along is a PDF called The Gap. And it's a reference to the video. So hopefully you'll all get a lot of value and out of those two things.
Yeah, thank you for that, for sure. I know everybody will get value out of that for sure. I'm definitely going to look into it myself. So,
Awesome.
Rob, again, we really appreciate your time, especially your story and what you've done and how you help other people out. And so I know people are going to want to contact you, get involved, and maybe ask you to be their coach. And what's one way they can actually get a hold of you to do that? So.
First of all, I'm not a big social media guy except for LinkedIn. So that is basically the best way to reach out to me is find me on LinkedIn. I go by Rob Powell, and RESOLUT RE is the company I'm with. That is the best way to reach me, and just message me through that. Does that work?
Yeah. No, sure. That works great. And we'll include that link in the description below too. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description. Or if you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, whether Apple Podcasts, Spotify, just check out the description and you'll be able to access his LinkedIn page and everything. So awesome. Rob, greatly appreciate your time. As we said before, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, we would greatly appreciate if you can like and subscribe this channel. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and ensures more and more people can hear this message. If you guys are listening to this in an Apple Podcast format or Spotify format, we would greatly appreciate if you could leave us a 5-star review. We've seen a significant uptick in our downloads as a result of you guys doing so. So we greatly appreciate it if you could. And feel free to share this episode with someone who you think would gain value from it. I think we've seen a significant uptick as a result of you guys doing so. So we greatly appreciate everything you all do and all the support you guys have given us. And we'll see you all next time.